Dr. Amanda Clark pressed her palm against the cool metal surface of the archive terminal and watched as streams of alien text flowed across the holographic display. The research station Kepler-7 hummed quietly around her, its corridors empty, except for the occasional maintenance drone drifting past on silent repulsors. She had been working alone in the archives for 3 weeks now, diving deep into the Galactic Council's vast database of genetic information. The assignment had seemed routine when she first arrived aboard the UGS Explorer. Dr. Ryan Murphy, her research partner, had suggested they use their shore leave to explore the Council's public archives, hoping to find interesting genetic patterns from newly discovered species. Amanda specialized in xenobiology, and Ryan was a brilliant geneticist, so the archive station seemed like the perfect place to spend their time while the Explorer underwent routine maintenance. But what Amanda found in the deepest layers of the database was anything but routine. She scrolled through another set of genetic sequences, her trained eye catching subtle patterns that most researchers would miss. These sequences were old, much older than anything else in the public archives. They were buried deep in subsection after subsection, hidden behind layers of bureaucratic filing that would have discouraged most casual researchers. But Amanda had always been stubborn, and something about these particular files had caught her attention 3 days ago. The genetic patterns were familiar, almost too familiar. They shared striking similarities with human DNA, but that was impossible. These files were dated over 3,000 years ago, long before humanity had even achieved faster-than-light travel, let alone made contact with the Galactic Council. Amanda pulled up another sequence and compared it to the human genetic database she carried on her personal research tablet. The match was nearly perfect, differing only in a few key areas that looked like natural evolutionary changes. Her heart rate increased as she realized what she was looking at. The archive terminal chimed softly, indicating that her access request for the next level of files had been processed. Amanda held her breath as new data appeared on the screen. These files were different from the others. They carried warning markers in dozens of alien languages, each symbol pulsing with a soft red glow. She activated her translation software and watched as the warnings became clear. Containment Protocol Active appeared in Council Standard, followed by Species Classification, Omega Threat Level, and Access Restricted to Level 9 clearance only. Amanda's research clearance was only Level 3. She should not have been able to see these files at all, but somehow the archive system had granted her access. She wondered if it was a glitch in the database, or if her human genetic signature had somehow triggered an automatic response. The genetic sequences in these restricted files were even more detailed than the others. They showed not just DNA patterns, but complex protein structures and cellular mechanisms that were incredibly advanced. Whoever these sequences belonged to had possessed remarkable genetic flexibility, with built-in adaptation mechanisms that could respond to environmental changes within a single generation. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. As Amanda dug deeper into the files, she found detailed anatomical models and physiological data. The beings these sequences described were humanoid in appearance, with the same basic body structure as modern humans. The resemblance was so strong that it could not be coincidental. Her hands trembled slightly as she accessed the final set of files. These contained historical records written in an ancient council dialect that her translation software struggled to process. The text was fragmented, but certain phrases came through clearly. The predecessors, rapid expansion, technological advancement, and most disturbing of all, the Great Silence. Amanda saved everything she could to her personal storage device, working quickly to download the massive files before the system could detect what she was doing. But as she initiated the final transfer, alarms began sounding throughout the archive station. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors outside the archive room, and the station's AI announced in multiple languages that a security breach had been detected. Amanda's terminal screen flickered and went dark, cutting off her access to the database. She grabbed her research tablet and headed for the door, but it sealed shut before she could reach it. Emergency containment protocols had been activated, trapping her inside the archive room. Through the transparent aluminum window, she could see security drones converging on her location. Ryan's voice crackled through her personal communicator. "Amanda, what's happening over there? The station's going into lockdown, and they're saying something about a priority alert to Council Central Command." "I found something, Ryan," Amanda replied, clutching her tablet tightly. "Something big. The Council has been hiding human genetic data for thousands of years." "That's impossible," Ryan said. "Humans weren't even spacefaring 3,000 years. Go. I know it sounds crazy, but I have the proof right here." The genetic sequences match human DNA almost perfectly, but they're dated long before first contact. The archive room door hissed open, and 3 Council security officers entered, their energy weapons drawn, but not aimed directly at her. Behind them walked a tall, crystalline being whose translucent body reflected the red warning lights like a prism. Amanda recognized the species as Veltarian, one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. "Dr. Clark," the crystalline being said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones typical of his species. "I am Investigator Veltar of the Council Security Division. You have accessed information that is classified at the highest levels." Amanda straightened her shoulders and met his multifaceted gaze. "I was conducting legitimate research in the CHI search. Public archives. If these files are classified, why was I able to access them?" Veltar's body flickered with patterns of light that Amanda's translation software identified as concern. "That is precisely what we need to determine. Your genetic signature appears to have triggered automatic access protocols that have been dormant for millennia." One of the security officers stepped forward and extended his hand. "Please surrender your research devices, Dr. Clark. This matter is of utmost importance to galactic security." Amanda hesitated, knowing that once she handed over her tablet, any proof of her discovery would disappear into the Council's classified vaults. But she was outnumbered and trapped, with no way to escape or contact anyone outside the station. She reluctantly handed over her tablet and personal storage devices. Veltar examined them briefly before passing them to one of his subordinates. "Dr. Clark, you and Dr. Murphy will be placed under protective custody while we investigate this incident," Veltar announced. "What you have discovered touches upon matters that could destabilize the entire galactic community if mishandled." "What could be so dangerous about old genetic data?" Amanda asked. Veltar's crystalline form dimmed slightly, and when he spoke, again, his voice carried a weight that made Amanda's skin crawl. "Dr. Clark, you have stumbled upon one of the Council's most closely guarded secrets. The genetic sequences you accessed belong to a species we once knew as the predecessors. They were the most dangerous beings the galaxy has ever known, and we have spent the last 3,000 years assuring they could never return." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine as the implications of his words sank in. If the genetic sequences matched human DNA so closely, what did that say about humanity's true origins? The detention cell aboard the Council enforcement vessel was surprisingly comfortable, but Amanda could not shake the feeling that she was being watched through every surface. Ryan sat across from her at the small table, his face pale and drawn. After their interrogation session with Veltar had ended 2 hours ago. "They know more than they're telling us," Ryan whispered, though he suspected their captors could probably hear everything anyway. "Did you see how Veltar reacted when you mentioned the genetic matches? He wasn't surprised at all." Amanda nodded and kept her voice equally low. "He's been expecting this discovery for a long time. The way he talked about those automatic access protocols, it was like they were designed to activate if someone with the right genetic signature came looking. The cell door hissed open, and Veltar entered alone. His crystalline body seemed dimmer than before, and the light patterns flickering across his surface suggested deep contemplation. He settled into the chair across from them, his movements careful and deliberate. "I have been authorized to share certain information with you," Veltar began, his harmonic voice carrying notes of reluctance. "The Council leadership believes that your discovery was inevitable, and that containment through ignorance is no longer possible." Amanda leaned forward eagerly. "Then tell us the truth about those genetic sequences." Veltar was quiet for a long moment, his body cycling through patterns of blue and green light. "The beings you call the predecessors were not merely another spacefaring species. They were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before or since." He gestured, and a holographic display materialized above the table, showing star charts that depicted the galaxy as it existed thousands of years ago. Many of the systems Amanda recognized were missing, while others showed civilizations that no longer existed. "This was our galaxy before the rise of the current Galactic Council," Veltar explained. 7 elder species had achieved interstellar travel and maintained peaceful contact for over a millennium. "We believed we understood the natural progression of intelligent life, the patterns that all species followed as they developed technology and expanded into space." The display shifted, showing new markers appearing across dozens of star systems in rapid succession. Then the predecessors emerged. In less than 2 centuries, they spread from a single world to over 40 systems. Their expansion rate was unprecedented. Ryan studied the hologram carefully. "That's incredibly fast, even by modern standards. Most species take at least 5 centuries to establish that many colonies." "Exactly," Veltar said. "But speed was not their most remarkable trait. The predecessors possessed genetic structures that allowed for rapid adaptation to new environments. Where other species required terraforming equipment and years of preparation, they could modify themselves to survive on almost any world within a single generation." Amanda felt a chill as she remembered the genetic sequences she had found. The adaptive mechanisms she had observed in the data were far beyond anything in modern human DNA, yet the basic patterns were unmistakably similar. "Their problem-solving abilities were equally extraordinary," Veltar continued. "They approached challenges in ways that defied conventional logic, often finding solutions that no other species had ever considered. They could look at our most advanced technology, and within months develop improvements that surpassed our greatest achievements." The hologram changed again, showing what appeared to be battle formations and fleet movements. The Council initially welcomed contact with the predecessors. "We believed their unique abilities could benefit all galactic civilization. But as time passed, it became clear that they were not interested in peaceful coexistence." "They were aggressive?" Amanda asked. "Not in the way most species understand aggression," Veltar replied. "They did not conquer through military force alone. They conquered through superiority. Every world they touched became more efficient, more advanced, more productive than it had ever been under its original inhabitants. They offered improvements to every aspect of life, and most populations willingly accepted their guidance." Ryan frowned. "That doesn't sound like conquest. It sounds like they were helping." Veltar's body flashed with sharp patterns of red and orange. "You do not understand. The predecessors did not simply improve existing systems. They replaced them entirely with their own designs. Within a few generations, every world under their influence had become completely dependent on predecessor technology and methods. The original cultures, governments, and ways of life disappeared, not through violence, but through obsolescence." The implications of this revelation struck Amanda like a physical blow. They were assimilating entire civilizations. In a sense, Yes, Veltar agreed. But they genuinely believed they were helping. The predecessors saw themselves as teachers and guides, elevating lesser species to higher forms of existence. They could not understand why anyone would prefer their old, inefficient ways when superior alternatives existed. The hologram now showed the galaxy divided into two distinct regions, with clear boundaries between Council space and predecessor territory. The situation became untenable when they began approaching Council core worlds. We could not allow our entire civilization to be absorbed, no matter how benevolent their intentions might have been. So you went to war, Ryan said quietly. The conflict lasted 18 months, Veltar confirmed. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the predecessors proved to be formidable opponents. Their adaptive genetics allowed them to quickly develop resistance to our weapons, while their innovative thinking led to tactics and technologies we had never encountered. Amanda could see the pain in Veltar's light patterns as he recalled those ancient battles. How many died? Billions on both sides, Veltar sighed. The predecessors never fought with cruelty, but they fought with a determination that was absolute. They believed they were defending the future of galactic civilization against forces that would keep it trapped in primitive inefficiency. The hologram shifted to show empty star systems, with all signs of civilization simply gone. Then came the great silence. In a single day, every predecessor colony, ship, and outpost went dark simultaneously. Council scouts found the worlds, intact but completely abandoned, as if the entire species had simply vanished. What happened to them? Amanda asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. We never found out, Veltar replied. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no messages explaining their departure. They simply ceased to exist, as if they had never been there at all. Ryan leaned back in his chair, processing the enormous scope of what they had just learned. And you think humans are connected to these predecessors somehow? Veltar's body dimmed to its lowest light level. Dr. Clark, the genetic sequences you discovered are not merely similar to human DNA. They are identical in all the fundamental patterns that make the predecessors unique. The adaptive mechanisms, the enhanced cognitive structures, the cellular efficiency improvements, all of it exists in dormant form within human genetic code. Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. You're saying humans are descended from the predecessors. We believe that Earth was a forgotten predecessor colony world where a small population somehow survived the Great Silence, Veltar explained. Over thousands of years, those survivors evolved into modern humanity, but the core genetic heritage remained intact, waiting for the right conditions to reactivate. The cell fell silent as Amanda and Ryan absorbed this revelation. Everything they thought they knew about human origins, about their place in the galaxy, had just been turned upside down. That's why the Council has been watching us, Amanda said finally. You've been afraid that we would become like them. Veltar nodded slowly. The moment your species achieved faster-than-light travel, the Council faced an impossible choice. We could not destroy humanity without violating our most sacred laws, but we also could not allow you to reach your full potential and repeat the mistakes of the past. Amanda stared at Veltar with growing horror as the full implications of his words began to sink in. You've been controlling us from the very beginning. The crystalline investigator's body flickered with patterns of what Amanda's translation. Software identified as regret mixed with necessity. The Genesis Protocol was implemented immediately after the Great Silence. Every Council member species contributed resources to create a galaxy-wide surveillance network designed to detect any emergence of predecessor genetic patterns. Ryan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the metal floor. That's why. You approached humanity when we achieved faster-than-light travel. You already knew we were out there. We had been monitoring your radio transmissions since the early 20th century, Veltar confirmed. Your technological advancement followed the same patterns we had observed in early predecessor development. The Council leadership knew it was only a matter of time before you would join the galactic community. Amanda felt sick as she realized how deeply humanity had been manipulated. So our first contact with the Council wasn't accidental at all. You orchestrated everything. The Council faced an unprecedented dilemma, Veltar explained. We could not destroy humanity without becoming the very thing we had fought against 3,000 years ago. But we also could not allow you to develop freely and potentially repeat the predecessor expansion across the galaxy. The holographic display above the table changed to show the current galactic map, with human colonies marked in blue and Council, territories in various other colors. Amanda noticed something that made her stomach clench with anger. Our colonies, she said, pointing at the display. They're all in resource-poor systems on the outer rim of Council space. Human settlements were strategically placed in locations that would limit your expansion potential, Veltar admitted. Systems with insufficient mineral resources for large-scale industrial development, or worlds that required significant terraforming, efforts that would delay population growth. Ryan began pacing the small cell, his face flushed with rage. What about our research programs? The genetic studies that keep getting canceled, the artificial intelligence projects that suffer mysterious setbacks? Veltar's light patterns shifted to deeper shades of blue, indicating what Amanda interpreted as shame. The Council has been carefully monitoring human scientific advancement for over 2 centuries. Any research that shows signs of approaching predecessor-level capabilities is quietly redirected or eliminated. Eliminated how? Amanda demanded. Funding is withdrawn through bureaucratic channels. Key researchers are offered prestigious positions in other fields. Critical equipment suffers unexpected malfunctions. Sometimes, if the research poses a significant threat, the scientists involved experience unfortunate accidents. Amanda's hands clenched into fists. You've been murdering human scientists. Only when absolutely necessary, Veltar said, though his tone suggested he took no comfort in this distinction. The Council takes no pleasure in these actions, Dr. Clark. We see them as tragic necessities to prevent a greater catastrophe. The cell door hissed open, and 2 more Council security officers entered. But instead of taking Amanda and Ryan back to interrogation, they stepped aside to allow a human man to enter. He was tall and lean, with prematurely gray hair and eyes that held the sharp intelligence Amanda recognized in her fellow researchers. Dr. Clark, Dr. Murphy, the man said with a slight smile. My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm here to get you out of this prison. Veltar's body blazed with sudden alarm patterns. This is impossible. How did you penetrate Council security? Jake pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. The security officers froze in place, their movements becoming slow and mechanical. Council technology has its limitations, especially when you understand how it works. Amanda stared at Jake in amazement. You're human, but you're using technology that can affect Council systems. How is that possible? Because I'm part of a group that's been preparing for this day for a very long time, Jake replied. We call ourselves the Heritage Foundation, and we've been operating outside Council oversight for decades. He gestured for Amanda and Ryan to follow him toward the door. We know about the Genesis Protocol, about the surveillance network, and about what the Council has been doing to suppress human advancement. We've been gathering evidence and preparing for the day when the truth would finally come out. Veltar tried to move toward his communication panel, but his movements were sluggish and uncoordinated. You cannot escape Council space. Our fleet will track you down. Your fleet is currently dealing with some technical difficulties, Jake said. It's amazing how many system failures can occur when someone understands the underlying programming languages your engineers use. As they moved through the ship's corridors, Amanda noticed that all the council personnel they encountered were moving with the same slow, mechanical behavior as the security officers. What could you do to them? Temporary neural disruption field. Jake explained. It interferes with the electrical patterns in their nervous systems without causing permanent damage. They'll recover in a few hours with nothing worse than headaches. They reached the ship's docking bay, where a sleek human vessel waited with its engines already warming up. The design was unlike anything Amanda had seen before, incorporating elements that seemed far more advanced than standard human technology. This ship uses principles that the Council has been keeping from us for centuries, Jake said as they boarded. Faster-than-light travel, advanced material science, energy generation methods that make fusion power look primitive. Ryan examined the ship's interior with obvious fascination. How did you learn to build this? The Council monitors all human research and development. We have sources they don't know about, Jake replied as he took the pilot's seat. And we've had help from someone who understands the true scope of what we're capable of. The ship launched from the Council vessels, docking bay, and immediately jumped to faster-than-light speed. Amanda watched through the viewports as the Council enforcement fleet fell behind, their ships unable to match the speed of Jake's advanced vessel. Where are you taking us? Amanda asked. To meet Dr. Lisa Grant, Jake said. She's the leader of the Heritage Foundation, and she's been conducting research that the Council would consider their worst nightmare. What kind of research? Ryan asked. Jake's expression grew serious. She's been studying the dormant genetic sequences that exist in human DNA, the ones that match the predecessor patterns you found in the archives. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. You mean she's been trying to activate them? Not trying, Jake corrected. Succeeding. Dr. Grant has discovered that the genetic locks the Council thought were permanent can be broken under specific conditions. And once they're broken, humans begin to develop abilities that go far beyond anything the original predecessors ever achieved. The ship's navigation system chimed, indicating they were approaching their destination. Through the viewport, Amanda could see a massive space station hidden in the shadow of a dead planet's moon. The station was clearly of human construction, but it incorporated design elements and technologies that should have been impossible with current human capabilities. Welcome to Haven Station, Jake announced, the place where humanity's true potential is finally being unleashed. As their ship docked with the station, Amanda realized that everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the galaxy was about to change again. The Council's carefully constructed plan to contain human development was falling apart, and the consequences would reshape the entire galactic community. She could only hope that when humanity finally reclaimed its predecessor heritage, they would prove wiser than their ancient ancestors had been. Haven Station was unlike anything Amanda had ever seen in her years of traveling through Council space. The corridors were wider than necessary for human traffic, with flowing curves that seemed to guide people naturally toward their destinations. The walls themselves pulsed with a faint bioluminescent glow that responded to the presence of people walking past, creating ripples of light that followed their movements. Jake led them through the station's main hub, where Amanda counted at least 300 humans working at various tasks. Some operated advanced machinery that hummed with unfamiliar energy signatures, while others stood in small groups around holographic displays that showed complex mathematical equations she could not begin to understand. How many people are here? Ryan asked, his voice filled with amazement. About 1,500 permanent residents, Jake replied. Scientists, engineers, and volunteers who have chosen to leave their Council-monitored lives behind to work on the Heritage Project. They passed through a security checkpoint where Amanda noticed the guards were armed with weapons that looked nothing like standard Council or human designs. The energy signatures emanating from the devices were both powerful and subtle, suggesting technology that operated on principles she had never encountered. "Dr. Grant is waiting for you in Lab 7, Jake said as they entered an elevator that moved not just vertically, but horizontally through the station structure. "She's been tracking your situation since you first accessed those archives on Kepler 7. The elevator opened into a vast laboratory space where dozens of researchers worked with equipment that seemed to blend biological and technological elements seamlessly. At the center of the lab stood a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held an intensity Amanda found both compelling and slightly unnerving. "Dr. Clark, Dr. Murphy," the woman said, extending her hand in greeting. "I'm Lisa Grant, and I've been looking forward to meeting you for a very long time." Amanda shook her hand and immediately noticed that Lisa's grip was stronger than it should have been for someone her age and build. There was also something different about her eyes, as if they were processing information at a faster rate than normal human vision allowed. "Jake tells us you've been studying the dormant genetic sequences in human DNA," Ryan said. Lisa smiled, but the expression carried an edge that made Amanda uncomfortable. "Studying them, activating them, and learning to control the abilities they provide. What you discovered in the Council archives was just the beginning of a much larger truth." She led them to a workstation where holographic displays showed complex genetic models rotating slowly in three-dimensional space. Amanda recognized some of the patterns from her research, but others were completely unfamiliar. "The Council believes they understand what the predecessors were capable of," Lisa continued. "But their records only show what happened during the 18 months of open conflict. They never witnessed what the predecessors achieved during their centuries of peaceful expansion." Lisa manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on specific genetic sequences that pulsed with different colors. "The adaptive mechanisms you found are just the surface layer. Beneath them are dormant capabilities that surpass anything the galaxy has ever seen." "What kind of capabilities?" Amanda asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. "Enhanced cognitive processing that allows for intuitive understanding of complex physical principles," Lisa explained. "Cellular regeneration that can repair damage at the molecular level. Most importantly, the ability to manipulate matter at the quantum level through conscious intention." Ryan stared at the genetic models with growing alarm. "You're talking about abilities that would be indistinguishable from magic. Any sufficiently advanced science appears magical to those who don't understand it," Lisa replied. "The predecessors developed these abilities through millions of years of guided evolution. The genetic code they left behind contains the blueprint for capabilities that evolution alone could never achieve." Amanda watched as Lisa activated another display that showed brain scans comparing normal human neural activity to patterns that were far more complex and active. "You've been experimenting on yourself. On volunteers who understand the risks and benefits," Lisa corrected. "We've successfully activated dormant genetic sequences in over 200 individuals. The results have exceeded our most optimistic projections." She gestured to one of the researchers working nearby, a young man who was manipulating a piece of metal without touching it. Amanda watched in fascination and horror as the metal flowed like liquid under his concentrated gaze, reshaping itself into complex geometric patterns. "The activation process is irreversible," Lisa continued. "Once the genetic locks are broken, the individual begins developing enhanced abilities within days. Full integration of all predecessor capabilities takes approximately 6 months." Ryan backed away from the workstation, his face pale with shock. "This is insane. You're fundamentally altering human biology without understanding the long-term consequences." "We understand them better than you think," Lisa said, her tone becoming sharper. "The Council has been monitoring every aspect of human development for centuries. They know exactly what we're capable of becoming, and they're terrified of it." Amanda's personal communicator suddenly activated, displaying an urgent message from the Council Enforcement Fleet. The transmission was being broadcast on all emergency frequencies, and the content made her blood run cold. All human colonies are to implement immediate genetic screening protocols, the message announced. Any individuals showing markers associated with predecessor DNA sequences are to be isolated and prepared for transport to Council medical facilities. Lisa's expression darkened as she read the message. They're accelerating their timeline. The Council has decided that containment is no longer possible, so they're moving to elimination. Jake appeared at her shoulder, his face grim. Our sources. Inside Council Command report that they're deploying a biological weapon designed to target specific genetic markers. It's scheduled for simultaneous release across all human worlds within 72 hours. Amanda felt the world spinning around her as the full scope of the Council's plan became clear. They're going to commit genocide. Not genocide, Lisa corrected. Genetic cleansing. The weapon will only affect humans who carry the dormant predecessor sequences. Anyone without those markers will survive, but they'll be unable to reproduce. With affected individuals, Brian gripped the edge of the workstation to steady himself. They're trying to breed the predecessor genes out of humanity permanently. Which means we're out of time, Lisa announced to the entire laboratory. Initiate emergency protocols. Begin immediate activation procedures for all volunteers. Alarms began sounding throughout the station as researchers abandoned their current projects and moved to predetermined positions. Amanda watched in amazement as the laboratory transformed into something resembling a medical facility, with activation chambers rising from the floor and genetic sequencing equipment deploying from hidden compartments. You can't possibly activate enough people in 72 hours to make a difference. Amanda protested. Lisa's smile returned, but now it carried an edge that made Amanda's skin crawl. We don't need to activate everyone manually. The genetic weapon the Council is deploying contains a fatal flaw that we've been preparing to exploit. She brought up a new display showing the molecular structure of the Council's biological weapon. Instead of destroying the predecessor genes, the weapon will activate them completely. The Council has unknowingly created the perfect catalyst for humanity's transformation. Amanda stared at the display in horror and fascination. You knew this would happen. You've been planning for it. For over 50 years, Lisa confirmed. We've been waiting for the Council to finally abandon subtlety and attempt direct action. Their desperation has given us the opportunity we needed to awaken humanity's true potential. The station shuddered as ships began launching from hidden bays, carrying Heritage Foundation members to positions throughout human space. Amanda realized that everything she had witnessed was just the beginning of a transformation that would reshape not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The genetic weapon struck humanity like invisible lightning across 47 worlds simultaneously. Amanda stood in Haven Station's observation deck watching the holographic displays that showed real-time data from every human colony as the Council's biological agents spread through their atmospheres. What should have been humanity's darkest hour instead became something unprecedented in galactic history. On New Terra, the first reports came in within minutes of exposure. Humans who had been going about their daily routines suddenly stopped what they were doing as dormant genetic sequences activated throughout their bodies. Construction workers found themselves understanding the molecular structure of the materials they handled, while doctors discovered they could perceive cellular activity in their patients without any diagnostic equipment. Phase 1 activation is occurring exactly as predicted, Lisa announced to the assembled researchers. Her own transformation had accelerated dramatically since the weapon's deployment, and Amanda could see patterns of light flickering beneath her skin as enhanced neural pathways processed information at superhuman speeds. Ryan monitored communications. From the outer colonies, his expression shifting between amazement and concern as reports flooded in. Colony 17 is reporting that their entire population can now communicate through some kind of quantum entanglement. They're sharing thoughts and experiences across distances that should be impossible. Amanda felt a strange tingling sensation in her own body as she realized that the weapon's effects were reaching even their hidden station. The Council had designed their biological agent to target any human with predecessor genetic markers, regardless of location, and apparently no place in human space was beyond its reach. "Don't fight the changes," Lisa advised as Amanda gripped the observation rail for support. "The activation process is intense, but not dangerous if you allow it to proceed naturally." Waves of sensation washed over Amanda as cellular structures throughout her body began reorganizing themselves according to genetic patterns that had been dormant for thousands of years. Her vision sharpened until she could perceive individual photons dancing through the air, while her hearing expanded to detect conversations taking place in other sections of the station. But the most remarkable change was in her mind itself. Mathematical concepts that had always required careful calculation now seemed as simple as basic arithmetic. She found herself understanding the fundamental principles behind the station's technology just by looking at it, perceiving the quantum interactions that made faster-than-light travel possible. "The Council fleet is approaching human space," Jake reported from the tactical station. "They're expecting to find devastated colonies filled with dying populations. Instead, they're about to encounter something they never imagined." The main display shifted to show the massive Council armada moving toward Earth's solar system. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species had gathered for what they believed would be a mercy mission to help surviving humans cope with the aftermath of the genetic weapons deployment. Amanda watched as the first Council scouts entered Earth's outer system and immediately began broadcasting warnings to their fleet commanders. The energy signatures they were detecting from human ships and installations were unlike anything in their databases. Earth's orbital platforms were generating power levels that exceeded theoretical maximums for human technology. "They're not detecting weapons," Lisa observed as she monitored the Council communications. "They're detecting us." The transformation was accelerating across all human populations. On Mars, colonists had begun reshaping the planet's atmosphere through conscious manipulation of molecular structures. The terraforming process that should have taken centuries was happening in real time as humans learned to direct chemical reactions through focused intention. But the most significant changes were occurring on Earth itself. The planet's population was connecting into a vast network of consciousness that transcended individual minds while preserving personal identity. 8 billion humans were becoming something greater than the sum of their parts, sharing knowledge and abilities across a collective intelligence that spanned continents. Amanda felt herself being drawn into this expanding network. At first, the sensation was overwhelming as thousands of other minds touched hers. But gradually, she learned to navigate the flow of shared consciousness. She could access the memories and skills of researchers on distant worlds while contributing her own knowledge to the collective understanding of their situation. Through the network, she experienced the moment when humans on each colony world made contact with their Council observers. There was no violence, no displays of aggression that might justify the Council's fears. Instead, humans reached out with offers of cooperation and assistance, demonstrating abilities that solved problems the Council had struggled with for millennia. On Kepler-9, human colonists showed Council engineers how to create matter at the quantum level, eliminating resource scarcity overnight. On Beta Centauri, humans helped repair damaged Council ships using techniques that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics but produced results that were undeniably real. The Council fleets advanced toward Earth slowed as commanders struggled to process reports that contradicted everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. Their carefully planned intervention was becoming obsolete as humans demonstrated they needed no assistance to thrive in their transformed state. Requesting a formal audience, Ryan announced as official communications began arriving from the Council flagship. Admiral Velkith wants to meet with human representatives to discuss the new situation. Amanda found herself chosen as one of 3 humans who would represent their species in these crucial negotiations. The selection had occurred through the collective consciousness without any formal voting or discussion, as if humanity had simply known who should speak for them. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station at the edge of Earth's solar system. Amanda accompanied Lisa and Jake as they faced a delegation that included representatives from all 7 founding council species. Admiral Velkith, a towering insectoid being, presided over the session with obvious nervousness. "We came here expecting to find a devastated human population requiring immediate assistance," the Admiral began. "Instead, we find abilities and technologies that surpass our most advanced achievements. We must ask what your intentions are regarding the galactic community." Amanda stepped forward, feeling the collective wisdom of humanity flowing through her thoughts. "Our intentions are the same as they have always been. We want to contribute to galactic civilization and help solve the problems that affect all species." "But your capabilities," another council representative interjected. "You have transcended the limitations that constrain normal biological life. How can we trust that you will not repeat the expansion of your ancestors?" Lisa smiled, and Amanda could see the same patient understanding in her expression that she felt within the collective consciousness. "Because we learn from their mistakes. The predecessors tried to improve other species by imposing their solutions from the outside. We offer our abilities as tools that others can use according to their own values and desires." The negotiations continued for hours as humanity demonstrated their new capabilities while assuring the Council that cooperation, not domination, was their goal. They showed how human innovations could solve energy crises, eliminate diseases, and even extend the lifespans of other species without requiring any fundamental changes to their societies. By the end of the session, a new framework for galactic cooperation had emerged. Humanity would take a leadership role in technological and scientific advancement, but always in partnership with existing council structures. The galaxy's future would be shaped not by conquest or assimilation, but by the voluntary collaboration of species working toward common goals. Amanda returned to Earth knowing that the Galactic Council's greatest fear had been transformed into their greatest hope. Humanity had reclaimed their predecessor heritage, but they had also transcended it, becoming something wiser and more compassionate than their ancestors had ever been. The galaxy would never be the same, but for the first time in millennia, its future looked brighter than anyone had dared to imagine.